Okay, so why don't you introduce yourself to the viewers of Positive TV then?
Okay.
I'm Lynne McTaggart. I'm author of 6 books, including The Field, The Intention Experiment, and my recent book, The Bond. And I'm also co-editor of a new magazine called What Doctors Don't Tell You.
Yes, and I'm Byran Hubbard, and I'm co-editing with Lynne the magazine, which we have recently launched on the newsstands. Although we've been publishing What Doctors Don't Tell You in this form for something like 23 years, in the last 2 months we've now relaunched it as a 100-page glossy magazine like this, which is now in all the stores, W.H. Smith, Tesco's, Sainsburys, Waitrose, and lots of independents as well.
So what kind of things would you expect to see in a magazine like this? What are your stories about?
Okay, Lynne?
Okay, well, our latest issue, the October issue, really leads with a story about Gardasil, which is a new so-called cervical cancer vaccine that's being launched in the UK to all 13 to 15-year-old girls. Now, there's been a complete blackout about this vaccine. It's been promoted in the press as a completely new thing and good thing. But I went back to America, where the vaccine's been around since 2008, and it's a very different story. There are great numbers of side effects with this vaccine. It's not as effective as it's been, as we've been told. It's been banned in India. There's many, many other areas. Even the person who invented the vaccine, Diane Harper, has distanced herself from the drug company selling it because she's so worried. So we believed that the British people have the right to this information. So a lot of what you'll see in this magazine is stuff you can't read anywhere else. The real truth about conventional treatments, side effects, ineffectiveness, things like that are being hid from the public. We also look at other alternatives, and we weigh them up. We look at what works and what doesn't work. Now, it's not always favorable. We've done stories about alternative weight loss supplements that don't really work very well or don't have evidence of working. But in this month's issue, we also look at new evidence providing a link between vitamin D, that's the vitamin that comes from the sun, and diabetes, and how a lack of it might be partly behind that disease. We look at incredible new evidence showing that hearing loss can be prevented and possibly even reversed through a non-drug approach. I mean, a lot of what we're looking at is what's the evidence for safer alternatives. We look at the fact that old age, supposed symptoms of old age, could actually be down to drug side effects. And they're causing, things like unsteadiness, falls, forgetfulness, may not be just a sign of old age. A lot of what we see as these kinds of symptoms are being caused by prescription drugs.
So is are you out to bash doctors? Is that the bottom line?
No, I don't think it is. I think that the problem is, I think, with the whole medical model is it is so pharmaceutically centred, and that doctors are pretty much reduced to delivering drugs to the patient and have to work within a very, very tight straitjacket, which is determined by randomised controlled trials, RCTs and the like, that they're no longer allowed to be healers outside of that. And I think what we're trying to do is widen the whole debate and talk about things that I think doctors actually would quite like to talk about as well. And they would like to move beyond the drug approach and talk about some of the stuff that's in this magazine. So I suppose, if we could extend the size of the magazine so it's A3 rather than What Doctors Don't Tell You, but really would like to. So I think we're trying to sort of free up the debate a bit, hope the doctors will release the shackles that tie them to the pharmaceuticals, so we can all have a better discussion about safer and better options beyond the pharmaceutical model.
But there's a bit of a kind of weight has been put onto this whole debate from somewhere. You were telling me?
With our distributor was approached at the tail end of the previous week by a chap called Simon Singh, Simon runs the Nightingale collaboration, which is tries to stop alternative practitioners from making claims on their websites. He also is one of the heads of Sense About Science, and Mr. Singh contacted our distributor and urged them to stop supplying the magazines. And at the same time, his followers also contacted all the retailers and again urged them to stop stocking the magazine, all on the basis that apparently the magazine is extremely dangerous. Well, we rather dispute that point, but even more fundamentally, there is a thing in this country called free speech and indeed freedom of the press, and alternative views are thankfully still allowed to be expressed, and indeed Mr. Singh lost the battle. But in the course of that, there's been all sorts of things back and forth. It's been very viral, and
has also been quite upsetting for you personally, I think, hasn't it?
Well, no, it doesn't upset me at all. They've tried to do a lot of personal attacks on my Facebook page, but I think all it does is illustrate what is happening here. The bottom line is that the elephant in the room are the statistics being released by medicine itself. The British Medical Association has just released the figures that only 13% of conventional treatments actually work. The American Medical Association released the figures some years ago that the third leading cause of death in the West is correctly prescribed prescription drugs. So it's obvious that modern medicine isn't working too well. We're losing the war on cancer. The NHS is going bankrupt. We need better alternatives. We need a new way. And so what I'd like to do is simply challenge the people who are against this magazine to do one thing, to stop doing things in an underhanded way, to try to stop banning us and have a grown-up debate. Let's talk about better alternatives. Let's talk about real science, because there's not a lot of science around modern medicine. Let's talk in a grown-up way and not with personal attacks. What we can do to help the people in this country get better.
It's odd because the people in this country seem to be changing their opinions about alternative therapy. I mean, I think you were talking about that earlier, about percentages of people who have changed.
Well, it's true. I mean, even though virtually, all alternative medicine is not available on the NHS, barring a few pockets of resistance of homeopathy. So it's costing people a lot of money, but nonetheless, something like 52% of people in the UK regularly turn to alternative medicine, and indeed in preference to conventional medicine, and instead of conventional medicine.
In the last number of years, more people have visited an alternative practitioner than have gone to a GP. Clearly, the British people want alternative medicine. They want a better approach. They want more information. They don't want a news blackout. They want to know about this, and they have a right to know.
Thank you for publishing your magazine.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Okay.